Ethan had always been a dreamer, the kind of boy who spent hours imagining a life of adventure, success, and recognition, yet rarely took any steps to make those dreams real. His room was a museum of aspirations, posters of astronauts floating in zero gravity, famous inventors staring down from their pictures, and shelves filled with books he meant to read but never touched. Every morning his alarm rang, a sharp reminder of another day to accomplish something, yet Ethan would hit snooze repeatedly, convincing himself that tomorrow would be the day he started. Time, however, had a cruel way of slipping past him, unnoticed and unappreciated, leaving him with a growing sense of guilt he refused to confront. His parents, Michael and Karen, had watched Ethan with a mixture of frustration and quiet worry. They had always believed in his potential, nurturing it patiently, but seeing him waste opportunity after opportunity was painful. His father would sigh as he glanced at the unkempt room, while his mother would sit silently, hoping one day Ethan would awaken to responsibility. Michael often tried to talk to him, telling him about perseverance, about how dreams required action, but Ethan always had a ready excuse: a headache, being tired, or needing a break. In his mind, he was just recharging, though in reality he was drifting further from his own goals. One evening, a sudden phone call shattered the fragile bubble of complacency Ethan had built around himself. Michael, his father, had suffered a minor heart attack at work. Karen's voice, trembling and urgent, guided him to the hospital in a blur of panic. Ethan had never felt such a surge of fear. He clutched his mother's hand tightly, his mind racing with thoughts he had avoided for years. The doctors were kind but blunt. His father would recover, but the bills were substantial, and without immediate financial help, the family would struggle. The weight of responsibility crashed down on Ethan with a force he could not ignore. For the first time, he understood the consequences of his inaction. The life he had coasted through was no longer a luxury. It had become a burden he had to face. That night, Ethan lay awake in his bed, staring at the ceiling as the hum of the hospital ventilator echoed in his ears. He thought about all the wasted mornings, the unstarted projects, the promises to himself that had dissolved into excuses. He had watched other people achieve greatness from the comfort of his couch, feeling envy and admiration in equal measure, yet never realizing that the power to change had always been within him. But fear now carried a weight that could no longer be ignored. His parents depended on him, and the idea that his negligence might harm them filled him with shame. Somewhere in that fear, a spark ignited, a dormant determination he had never felt before. The next morning, Ethan rose before dawn. The usual excuses did not come. The sluggishness that had ruled him for years was gone. He opened his laptop, determined to find a way to help his family immediately. He began small, offering to tutor neighborhood children in math, mow lawns, run errands, and deliver groceries. At first, every task felt like climbing a mountain, and fatigue often threatened to pull him back into old habits. But he refused to surrender. Slowly, the money he earned began to cover his father's medical bills, and each small success fueled a growing sense of purpose and confidence. With each passing week, Ethan's transformation became more evident. His room, once a chaotic mess, became organized. His days were structured with lists, plans, and goals. He enrolled in online classes to improve his skills, dedicating hours each day to learning things he had long ignored. His friends began noticing the change, initially skeptical, then genuinely impressed. Ethan no longer cared about their approval. He cared about proving something to himself, proving that he could rise from years of wasted time to become someone reliable, capable, and responsible. One afternoon, Ethan's mother found him in the backyard, hunched over a notebook filled with plans for a small online tutoring business he intended to start. She hesitated, watching him silently for a moment before he looked up and smiled. "Mom," he said, his voice steady, "I know I've wasted a lot of time, but I'm not going to waste any more. I want to build something for myself and help others at the same time." Karen's tears fell freely as she hugged him tightly. She had never felt prouder, never imagined that the boy who had once drifted aimlessly could awaken with such determination. Michael, too, felt a surge of hope and relief, realizing that Ethan had finally grasped the importance of responsibility and action. As months passed, Ethan's life continued to improve. He was earning enough to cover his family's expenses and save for college. But more importantly, he had discovered a strength he had never known existed. The boy who once feared every effort had learned the value of resilience. Each challenge, each setback, became an opportunity to prove to himself that he was capable of more than he had ever imagined. His story began to spread through the neighborhood, inspiring other children who struggled with laziness and distraction, showing them that change was possible even when it seemed too late. By the time Ethan graduated high school, he had transformed into more than just a student. He was a symbol of perseverance and self-realization. Teachers who had once been frustrated with his lack of focus now applauded his dedication. Friends who had mocked his indolence now sought his advice on productivity and goal setting. Ethan, however, remained humble, always remembering the boy who had slept through life and the night when fear forced him to wake up. That night had been a turning point, a lesson etched deep into his heart, reminding him that dreams alone were insufficient. Dreams required action, discipline, and courage. Ethan's journey was not without its struggles. Some days, exhaustion threatened to pull him back into old habits, and doubt whispered that his efforts were meaningless. But every time he faltered, he remembered the hospital room, his father's frail condition, and the look of worry in his mother's eyes. Those memories became fuel, transforming doubt into determination. He learned that success is not a straight path but a series of persistent choices, made day after day, moment by moment. In the end, Ethan understood a truth that few truly grasp. The difference between a dreamer and a doer is not intelligence, talent, or luck. It is the willingness to act, to persevere, and to face discomfort head-on. His life was no longer defined by wasted mornings and unrealized potential. It was defined by the courage to change, the commitment to his family, and the determination to build a future worth living. He had learned that fear, when embraced and channeled, could be a powerful motivator, capable of awakening even the most dormant spirit. Ethan's story spread beyond his neighborhood, reaching schools and families who recognized the universal truth in his transformation. He became a quiet inspiration, not through speeches or accolades, but through the simple proof of his life. A boy who had slept through life, who had nearly let fear and laziness dictate his future, had risen and become someone capable, compassionate, and strong. He had shown that it is never too late to change, and that the combination of love, responsibility, and relentless effort can ignite a fire that no obstacle can extinguish. Ethan often reflected on his journey, realizing that the boy he had once been still lived within him, not as a reminder of failure but as a testament to growth. Every day, he woke with gratitude, determination, and a quiet pride, carrying forward the lessons that had reshaped his life. He had learned that dreams, no matter how distant, are always within reach when a person chooses to act, to persevere, and to believe in themselves. And in that belief, Ethan found freedom, purpose, and the power to create a life that was truly his own.